CCI have just told me they work with 80 different companies in different parts of the world. The young people that are working on the computers behind us here are among the ones I have been telling Kenyans, tutafinya computer? Tunafinya computer? Dola unaweka kwa mfuko. This is exactly what it is.
Call center industry is growing very rapidly in Kenya. It provides jobs very quickly, and all this is happening at the heart of Tattoo City, which is the first operational special economic zone in Kenya, which provides the kind of enabling environment for international companies to come in and invest.
The problem with third world countries, with developing countries, is the lack of capital to participate in the financial market, because at the end of the day, to make money in the financial market, you need money. What is really also important to understand is nowadays we have Forex prop firms where you can get, as every retail trader with a Forex prop firm can get funded.
Education has really improved within the financial markets. The financial products have also expanded. So you are able to, if you are trading in NSE in Kenya, you're able now to graduate to global markets.
Quality information is required to monitor and evaluate interventions that are directly affect the population. We also recognize this need for community engagement. Engaging local communities in the development and implementation of data-driven strategies, their insights and feedback are invaluable for ensuring relevance and success of the initiatives that we make.
As we partner with the ITCILO to deliver a program we have called the International Postgraduate Certificate in Industrial Relations. This is a program that will provide not only basic training in labor relations, but also provide a basis for professional advancement for labor sector practitioners in human resources, employment, and labor relations.
Indeed, of course, that is a soapbox, just giving you a feel and flavor of what the business community was saying recently. And looking at today's editorial cartoon, taxation, I'm just getting started. That is what the president said. Oh, you should be prepared now to be taxed yearly. He's just gotten started yet. And looking also at the Star, we can still raise more, right? It's very optimistic, and you can see the pale in hand there about taxation. But you can be saddled with all this, the housing levy. Also, there's Spati Pesa, right? That is Spati Pesa is also the betting companies. You can see one of the betting companies also is out of the country. That is BetSafe, which exited the country because of the higher taxation in the country. Also 2.5% on, they call it the wealthy tax on the motor vehicles, Bilokero. I wonder why they call it the wealthy tax. And bread, we had also from Imani Ishungwa, also is a wealthy tax, because all the wealthy are the ones who are eating bread, if we go by what he was saying yesterday. All right, so taxing 16% on bread as well is for the wealthy. This is the current state of play as far as discussion is concerned. Just looking at the taxations, and that is in the financial bill 2024-2025. And intern tutors and intern medics, we can see medics have passed on the baton to the intern tutors who now are on strike, if we're talking about JSS. And you know about it right now. This was happening this week. Phil called me Lenturi, the cat with 9 lives, escaping the jaws of the alligator there, or the impeachment. And now that is done and dusted. All right, we still continue with the conversation. Bill Okero, you are to continue with the IFMIS that we're talking about also when it comes to transparency and the denial of control of budgets to have real-time access to the bank accounts in the counties.
Yes, IFMIS was introduced by the government for the purpose of transparency and accountability in public financial resources, to ensure prudent use of financial resources and to enhance visibility of financial transactions, you know, both at county and government, county and the national level. Unfortunately, and of course, it starts from the budget formulation, you know, all the way it goes to procurement, it goes to up to the point of financial reporting. So if IFMIS was in fact, it's a very good tool, if it was used effectively, you would say then you would have prudent use of finance. There'll be a proper accountability and so forth. I'll give you an example. So a county does its budget, and there's a vote for tea. It will be in their budget and it will be uploaded onto the IFMIS and so forth. So when you are making a procurement, there must be that it is against that vote, against that allocation, or that the money that has been appropriated by that county assembly. If money is released at the controller level or approved at controller level and released, all the way up to central bank level, it's all based on those on that budget thing. So that as you spend, then you are spending one within the budget, and you cannot release money that is not budgeted for and does not have that's one of the things that features that it has. And up to the financial reporting and approval of all the payments and everything. But what is happening is like in every other thing, and this I'm speaking from experience because I was chair of Senate Finance. The IFMIS office is not transparent itself. It's reached a point where you could hire an IFMIS officer, and this I'm saying from experience, and anybody can challenge me. You could hire an IFMIS officer to your county to go and tweak the system for you, all the way up to the treasury, so that your system, your actual transactions can bypass all those things. Yes, and so money can be approved without being budgeted for. Payments can be made without going through the proper, procedures for approval of payments and so forth, and all those things. So you could hire an IFMIS officer to try and get those things for you. That's why I keep saying that treasury is one of the challenges we have in this country in terms of getting.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
So also with this, the quest for the single treasury account, with what you're telling us.
Treasury is there. The word treasury is there. Good luck.
But the technology problem can be solved using blockchains.
Nobody wants it. There was a blockchain task force, you remember?
Yes.
That came up with very excellent recommendations on how to use that. Does anyone want to use any system that fundamentally limits, enhances the scrutiny or limits the opportunities for interference? It will not go very far. You remember the e-procurement?
Yes.
I mean, all of them, they get shot down at the end of the day.
Yeah, but in all of this is the override, it's the human override.
Correct.
Yeah, and the systems are such that technology only helps you to identify that there was an override. But dealing with the overrides, now it's a matter of the law now. The law needs to kick in and punish those who are doing the overrides. In the days when the National Youth Service 1 crisis came, it was clear that was this kinds of tweaking by some people around the FMI systems that cleared the way to a point where somebody was supposed, remember there's a case in the NYS 1 where somebody was making approval. It's like they were sitting there, you do this and I pass this, you do this. And it's what now, we know that the system has helped us to understand that's what happened. But then what do you do about it? And the laws are clear, and I think that is something where really, as we say, Treasury, who is the mother of these IFMIS things, has to come out strongly and pursue corrective actions. Yeah.
All right.
But I think one of the issues I've found in this country, and we need to put a lot of emphasis on it, is when you come up with information systems or in technology, we must always bring in the human behavior, the human factor, as you put it. And I think we don't put a lot of emphasis on that, even in business schools, about the human behavior. You can come up with the best technology, the most advanced technology, but always boils down to the human being, your culture, your behavior, how you are brought up, and how you see things. And that's why I think at the time we connect your governance. It's also a question of human behavior. How do we bring up our kids to believe that we don't need to steal to become rich, that you can do things right and still progress. And I think that's the direction we should take.
Indeed. All right, let's try and look at the fuel stabilization, where the state tapped into the fuel stabilization fund for the first time since October last year to stop an increase of palm prices by up to 2.27 shillings per litre. The cushion lowered super petrol prices per litre in Nairobi marginally to 192.84 from 193 93.84 previously. Diesel, whose prices were not covered, dropped to 179.18 from 180.38 in the review that takes effect, of course, which took effect from yesterday until June the 14th. Without the cushion, the price of petrol will have jumped by 2.27 shillings per litre. The last time stabilisation was applied was in October and November 2023 cycle. This came at a time when prices of super petrol in the global market rose by 5% to 927 dollars per ton from $881.11 last month, while prices of diesel increased by 1.4, that is per ton, that is $737.49 per ton. The shilling also marginally weakened against the dollar, with the energy regulator applying an exchange rate of 134.63 units. We want to discuss this a bit also and see, are we tracking back to where we were before with the fuel subsidy, where everyone was saying, no, it's not, this is not fuel subsidy, this is stabilization fund. What is the difference? So make us all the wiser to know. It's just a matter of semantics.
Yeah. But it's good that they, I would say personally, it's a good use of that fund, petroleum, regulatory levy, because that's essentially what it was meant for. For a long time, we have not been using that fund to mitigate against the volatility in the international market of these things. That I think is important, because in business, in economy, you need stability in some of these things. You cannot have a situation where, because how else do you plan? How do you budget? How do you get investors to look at beyond a few months when you are changing things every day? So I think the reason, I'm happy that they are now using it to at least stabilize, even if they are not doing it by, if I were them, of course, I would not just put a shilling. I would simply say no, because I have the money. It's Kenyans who paid it. It's a tax. You taxed me on my fuel to collect that money. So you should stabilize it so that the price of petrol should stay the same for 5, 6, 7 months, so that people can plan and businesses can move on. Yeah. So, but at least that they have managed to use it so that you can increase it only by 1 shilling itself. It's a welcome thing. They have moved from that rigid mentality they had when they came in, that we are going to scrap this thing completely, and that Uhuru was. You
need actually a buffer margin in between, isn't it? Yeah.
But reality checks in, and then you see that you have to do something about it.
Are we also, should we be optimistic because of the stronger gain of a shilling against the dollar? Will it also really affect, I think the prices should be going down?
Yes, we should be optimistic. I mean, many people think it is inflows of foreign loans, the IMF thing and so forth. Plus, of course, some of the measures the central bank itself has taken, interventions which they criticized Uhuru for. They have intervened strongly to try and keep the shilling reasonably, strong. I think if they continue with that, yes, then it would have a moderating effect on the price of fuel and other aspects of the economy.
I'm hoping that in addition to the price of petrol going down, I'm hoping that it will not be counterbalanced by the proposed car tax. Because I'm concerned that more than 100 years after the car was discovered, we still think cars are for the rich people. That's why you want to tax them. Every tax is being loaded on the car.
Has it been labeled the wealthy tax?
Yes. But I don't think a car is not for the rich people. A car is for everybody. It's a tool like your phone, like your shoes, like your computer. So it is not in good faith to tax cars. We don't tax computers and other tools that we use. Why tax cars?
What about bread?
Bread is even worse, because if you are taxing, why are you taxing bread? Why not gouache? Because nowadays we're eating gouache and other things in the...
Gouache is actually a nomaza now for the rich, so to speak. You can afford them also from the supermarket.
So I think my argument is, when you come up with the taxes, they should be all targeted, not random.
You know, there is a risk here I can see around this table. People get into a social class in which unreachable things become so ordinary that you wonder. Now, Prof thinks that having a car is not a big deal anymore. See how far that is from the guy in the reality.
I don't think that is. I don't think that's my reasoning. Because when I talk about the car, I'm not talking about my car. I'm talking about matatus. I'm talking about buses. I'm talking a car as means of making us reach faster, travel faster, be more productive. I'm talking about a car in a very general way. So 100 years after it was invented, we still think that only rich people should own cars. A car should not be a status symbol.
That's exactly the point. The ownership side of this tool that is now at least 100 years old. It's just true. You make a very important point that when you put taxes on things like transportation that are an apex type of expenditure, it affects many other things.
That's my argument.
But there's no doubt that access to rapid transportation is still a big issue for us. We have almost statistically we have overcome the inhibitions to technology, but in terms of distribution among the people, we still are smartphones are still growing faster than in many other parts of Africa, but they are still not as common as they should be. And I guess that's something we're going to get into. There is a risk here that for the middle class, and I think that's a big challenge we have in Kenya. The middle class tends to, its ecosystem is all around what the middle class does. But you know, here we are, Mr. Benin reminded us that maybe 70%, maybe 50% of the people we have are just hanging somewhere on the periphery. Let us get them into the monetary economy fully for them to realize what these costs are and to experience them and to pay us the taxes or not pay. And this is going to be a process. I still get people who are stuck with the 500 shillings to take their kids back to school in a term. They are short of 500 shillings. And they're asking for 500 shillings. And they're desperately in need of it. I mean, these are really real basics.
Let me emphasize this issue of the motor vehicle. You know, it's not a, of course, I agree with what he says. It's true. Many Kenyans, it's a luxury to have a car. I mean, they can't afford to buy a car. But, and this is why, and the government, I think the thinking of the government that, you know, the 3 million Kenyans who are driving out of, because approximately the number of is 3 million, who are driving us are rich and therefore they should be taxed on the car. I think it's really misplaced in my view, because what your government should be thinking about should be the opposite. How can we get the other 47 million Kenyans to own cars?
That's my argument.
To be able to drive. And why are they not able to drive, by the way? It's not because of lack of affordability, it's because of government taxes. A car that would easily cost you from Japan, because many Kenyans, by the way, the cars we're buying are used cars from Japan. How many people go to the showroom in Nairobi and buy a brand new car? It's businesses mainly and government. Everyone else uses used cars from Japan. But if, imagine the government was not having that huge tax of over 100% on a used car, you could get your Corolla for 200,000 shillings from Japan and drive. But because of the taxes, you cannot afford. So, I mean, we have a situation where the government should be encouraging people to be mobile, to have more vehicles on the road, to have access to vehicles. So that, by the way, these vehicles are like now, when this Ultra thing came in for the Uber or whatever, this rider thing, how many Kenyans got a chance to own them? Because they're costing about 400,000 or 500,000 shillings.
A lot.
Now everywhere you go in this country, even the remotest, even if you go to Mandela, you'll see them on the road. They're the taxis. You know, Bolt and Ubers and all those, you know, rides that are available. So I think we need to encourage people.
Sure.
But the moment you start saying we want to tax, what you're doing is the opposite. You're telling Kenyans you can't afford to buy a car. They want us to walk. The other 3 million to go back to the other 47 and start walking. This is not right, my friend. I think you should tell the government.
I knew you would say that finally. You're itching to come.
Right. I also saw once we were reading the Business Daily, and I know, Bilo, we need to talk about it briefly, because I saw also Bunyasi Sakwa's eyes popping out. Could be also KDC is one of them as well that is being merged or not. Let's try and see. This is what is on the front page of the Business Daily today. Before we wind up, we just want to pick also a bit of it. The first 35 parastatals to be merged, acts revealed. And you can see the restructuring, how it will be. Some of them here. Poster is one of them. And they will merge up with the Kenya National Shipping Line, partner with a strategic investor to bring in capital for cargo shipment, clearing and forwarding and last mile destination. We have also Kenya National Qualifications Authority, and that will be merged up with the Commission for University Education, a new regulator for quality education and qualifications. Also, we have Export Processing Zone Authority, Export Processing Zones Authority, EPZ, with Special Economic Zones Authority, Kenya Academy of Sports, with Sports Kenya, and also Kenya Industrial Property Institute with Kenya Copyrights Board. And they say here, first of all, that the entity that is Special Economic Zones and EPSA, the new entity to create an enabling environment for investors through promotions of processing and special zones. And also for Kenya Industrial Property Institute and Kenya Copyright Boards, we have established entity to register and patent intellectual and industrial property copyrights. Bilo, let's just begin from here, or ex-Iraqi. The last time also I saw Poster Kenya was being bailed out by the government, 1 billion shillings, to try and stabilize it currently in the financial doldrums. But what will be your take on this? I think it's been a long time in coming since Abdul Kadir's report.
No, this is a very positive development, because, and it's long overdue. We have nearly 250 state corporations, and you know, many of which are not. About 40, 50 of them are commercial in nature, but majority of them are really institutions that have been set up, you know, over the years without serious thinking, and some of them really don't add any value, and there's duplication. I mean, this is why when you say special economic zones and export processing zones, I mean, it's really they are one and the same thing. And you know, Brand Kenya, Vision Kenya, you have so many of these things. I think it's good that they're merging, and this is a good place to start. However, I think the government needs to go further than this. My concern is not on these ones only, but these ones which are under the ministries, like Ministry of Infrastructure and Roads. You have Ministry of Roads, then you have Kura, you have Kera, you have Kenha, you have KRB. I mean, all of them are state corporations with massive allocations of money.
What's KRB?
Kenya Roads Board, with huge allocation of money. You go to the Ministry of Water, it's the same, Water Trust Fund, water this, water that. There are so many. And I think if there's any ministry, anyone that, and these are the ones where most of the misuse is happening. I mean, ask any Kenyan on the road. I mean, if you go to those offices, that's where all Kenyans are lining up for contracts and jobs. That's where the activity is. And then the ministry is getting huge allocation. Then those organizations are all holding huge amounts of money. Kera, the other day we were told, was holding, you know,
23 billion.
23 billion shillings. So I think in addition to this one, if the government is really serious, a ministry can run all those things. A Ministry of Roads can run roads. They've done it from independence up to Kibaki's time when these things were set up. Ministries were the ones running, Ministry of Roads were the ones running everything. And there are many countries in Africa, start from our neighboring countries here. It's still the Ministry of Roads which do all the roads activities. But you don't go and say, I've created one for higher roads and rural roads and urban roads and I mean, then the same thing with Ministry of Water and Agriculture. Those three ministries, that's where all the state corporations which really matter. That's where the money gets stolen. That's where the wastage and inefficiencies are. This is the area where Water Ministry, for example, a lot of duplication. How many of them deal with water? You will be shocked. From water harvesting to the ones that are building dams, to the Water Trust Fund and water enterprise, water resource or something, what is it called? Warma and so forth. There are so many. I mean, and everything is really something that a ministry can do. Some of them, like Warma is policy, really ministry can do those things. So I think, yeah, it's a good thing to start, but I think they should go ahead and expand it to other state corporations also.
Yes.
Go ahead, okay. Thank you. I think that from an economic point of view, it makes a lot of sense because we expect these new merged entities to benefit from economies of scale. We expect them to be more efficient because there's no duplication of jobs. There's no duplication of activities. People will not be fighting for tasks. Because I've seen cases where one entity says this, another one entity says, or another one says, no, that's my mandate. So I think that's remaining would be good. And I'm hoping that the money that will be saved, because if you look at the job that will be saved in terms of CEOs and so on, I hope it will be channeled to more productive sectors, education, health, and so on. But I'm hoping there will be no politics involved because the people who had these institutions that are being merged, they were given those jobs. And soon we are going to be hearing that our people, Wanamarizo, our people, and so on. So I hope there will be no politics in these reforms. It will be guided by economic sense and prudence.
Yeah, I think it's a good direction.
Through the list yourself?
Yes, I think I was still on by the time I left home.
Phase 2.
I think, yes, the points have been made by my colleagues very well. Issues around economies of scale, removing duplication, I think that's a very good process. In addition to that, you should also have a policy of deregulation. Sometimes you deregulate something and then suddenly the institution does not need to exist. So it's not just a question of merging them because that can lie low for 5 years and then again they will re-emerge as separate institutions. You really need to completely remove those institutional boundaries and make it one entity, as it were. Then you rationalize internally, you liberalize part of what it is you're trying to regulate and so on. And I'm glad that for now it's being driven by fiscal concerns, just by issues of ability to finance and so on. But later it should be that for the economy to grow, the management must not be confronted with too many regulations. And that's always a challenge everywhere. So you also want to ease off those, that kind of thing. So Kenya Forestry, and I don't know which the other is, the guys who killed, I hope we'll talk about that briefly before you close.
The 19-year-old boy.
Yes, a chap who was defending his mother from collecting firewood. I mean, how colonial and primitive can we really get? And people descended on him. There are courts also, even for the Forestry Service and Wildlife Service. There are courts so they can take people to escort them to court and charge them if they want to do that. But to descend on them with the boots and such, these are institutions that are completely misplaced in terms of their mandate, perhaps even the incremental value they have to the economy and so on. So I think it's a good time for reflection.
Indeed. And of course, we ran that story earlier, but we can just rerun it just to talk about it as well, because I think the matter is in court right now. But more importantly as well, is that 23 out of 40 universities in Kenya are insolvent, according to the Principal Secretary for Higher Education, Beatrice Inyangala. The said universities have collectively accumulated a staggering 76 billion shillings in outstanding bills. She insisted that the pending bills are increasing because the institutions are not able to raise funds. Inyangala, who was speaking when she appeared before a departmental committee, tabled a set of recommendations aimed at assisting universities in reducing their debt burden.
About 40 universities are declared technically insolvent. With this variance and the heavy deductions in the budget, it means that more universities will become insolvent. We did have a discussion on what needed to be fed into that cabinet memo. We needed to have undertaken some actions so that we report on the outcomes and state that we have moved this far, we have been able to raise this much money, we have been able to resolve some of the pending bills, and we are projecting that within 5 years we may have been able to resolve some of the bills, but there's still a gap here where we require support. Another action was that we start a discussion with the Kenya Revenue Authority about the possibility of waiving the tax. Again, the outcome of that would be included in the CAB memo, because this CAB memo would then be tabled with the endorsement from the Treasury.
Right, let's hear from Exxon Iraqi.
I knew.
So we'll begin
start,
from the lecture, of course.
I knew to start with me.
To give us the true current state of play.
That's not very good news. I don't work in the finance department of the universities, but that's not very good news when you say that 23 of 40 universities are insolvent. In my opinion, one of the problems we have had in the university is that our universities don't have enough freedom to make decisions by themselves. For example, you'll be surprised that if you went to one of the Kenyan public universities 20 years ago, another person who goes there today, they will be paying the same fees. And the government does not want you to raise fees, the government does not want to give you money. So I think if the government does not want to give the university money, it should also give them more freedom to experiment and to come up with income generating initiatives that are usually academic oriented. And we also have not tapped a very important market, which is the foreign market. I think one of the easiest ways to make money in the university is to get more foreign students. If you look at American, I was looking at American, Canadian, Australian universities. Like the other day, unless statistics have changed, education is Australia's second biggest export. So one way maybe to make our universities more vibrant is get students from neighboring countries, from foreign countries, and they will probably show up our resources. And the final one, and you have given us a list of parastatals to be restructured. Maybe we can also start merging some universities. Some universities are equivalent to some universities' departments. So maybe we should merge some of them so that they benefit from economies of scale. Why should we have a university that is 2 kilometers from another just because it's a neighboring county? We also need to be bold in reforming university education.
I agree with him. I think one of the things that President Uhuru Kibaki actually messed around with judicial universities, he allowed this proliferation of universities all over. And I agree, because even the cost of having all these universities, because when you have a university, then you'll have the entire management cost that is involved. But when you have one university extending, having branches in several counties, then you'll save all that. But I think that merger, they've talked about it. I think Magoha was one of the things that he mentioned he was going to do, but I think because of political, expediency, they were not able to go ahead with that, because no one would be willing to have a university that has been established in his or her county to disappear again. In fact, the county is asking.
This is the county's universities.
Yes, people are asking for our people.
47 of them.
University. Yes, it's one of the things that people are asking for. But having said that, I think university higher education is critical in the development of a nation, and I think government needs to really think very, very seriously, because I know a Minister of Education takes the highest budget, but if you're going to invest in basic education and then you're going to starve universities, it doesn't make sense. And what's the point of sending 10 million kids to school in primary, but when they come to the secondary, they want to university, there are no universities?
You have nailed it.
It will lead to a waste of human capital. You bring them up all over, then they just become worthless. So I think government needs to really look at the issue, how to finance universities. And the budget for universities is not so huge, compared to what we spend on on parliament and on many other institutions that government spends on. So I think there is need to relook at that. It's unfortunate that tweaking the government did both on the financing of the universities and the help loans. Both of them, I think, they were counterproductive. I think what we had before was working effectively. The little money they were getting was helping them, and help was working. Now everything seems to be, it's difficult to get a loan now if you're a poor person in there because of the criteria that they have come in with. And now this one of the universities is going to make it even worse.
Let me just comment a bit on this also. I don't know about the feasibility of merging. I don't know what University of Nairobi in the city here would be merged with which one.
It's big enough.
Yes, but see, they exclude themselves from it. Maybe they're the ones who should absorb the smaller ones. Yes, should it? It's difficult. So, but the point, I think the powerful argument here is you can't have a huge base of school intake like we have done, and we are doing that successfully. Maybe it's our most successful social experiment. that we have in comparison with our peer countries. To get the enrollment, school enrollment is extremely high. And you can't constrict it, as Bill has said, by artificially saying, oh, but now when it gets to this point, we are not interested. I know the rates of return to education vary. They're higher at the bottom of the pyramid. They get lower as you go. But the truth is that they are essential to sustain the country's development. In some countries, as Professor Iraqi has said also, it's an export, it's a revenue earning component of what can be done. So some creative thinking is there. But on the issue, say, for example, of pending bills, once we begin driving ourselves by the degree to which we have failed to fund, and yet there are so many misdeeds, there are so many inefficiencies in the system, we will be failing. We have to fix those inefficiencies. Education, health, and those kinds of things are going to be essential things for us if we have to sustain ourselves as a nation. Counties are fairly big entities to be able to get to tertiary level institutions, in theory, to service the county, but in practice, people can move from across the county. Even in the TTIs, people come from Busia and they're in Machakos or they're in Kilifi or they're somewhere. There's an element of movement. But those are really, really essential. So let us not let these pending bills, which have arisen out of breaking the law, not paying attention, poor governance, begin to dictate our major thrust of public policy around education. I think we need more of this, and we are not going to have that reified position of degree as it was before, but it's a good level of training and maturity to even service the local institutions. I have in my former constituency people of bachelor's degrees and are applying for jobs of assistant chief. Now, when you look at this, say, hey, what a waste. But perhaps now our assistant chiefs would be people with much higher education, the governance will be improved, and so on. I don't know that will be the case, but it means also that the economy is not growing enough to absorb these people, and that's not their problem.
Maybe they have a different perspective that that will be the entry now to to reach the upper reaches of government. You begin from a chief, right?
Yeah, sure, it will expand.
We don't have DOs nowadays, at least now.
I had the intention of getting laptops for my assistant chiefs and chiefs. So, because the population is such that you can easily have it right on your laptop, and you can know what actions you're taking for each one of them so that governance can improve, the crudeness in it can go. And by the way, there are a lot of unfairness on the poorer members of the community. Land is taken away, the lease arrangements are never fair. There are very many things that happen that are completely crooked that we need to fix, and you can know them household by household.
Thank you. I'll be remiss if we don't really talk about also the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote debate. And this is a very interesting editorial cartoon that Victor had, that is yesterday, on 1 man, 1 shilling in Mount Kenya. And you can see there, that was previously, if my director may just pick it up, and you can see you could not enter that particular door. But right now, right, it's like you're walking on eggshells with Rigathi Gachagua leading this particular debate, and there are those traps all over the voting polls there. 1 man, 1 shilling in Mount Kenya is becoming a very contentious issue. Bill Okero, what will be your comment briefly on this debate, and where is it going to take us?
I have written extensively on this matter. I have been, I'm one of those very opposed to this, because in essence what it's saying is what the Deputy President said, that the more people you have, the more taxes you collect, which is not only misleading, but which is completely false. Because I remember I did, because when I was in Parliament in the 2003 and 4, when we were doing the BOMASAT, we were doing the review of we were working on whether devolution would be feasible. I was chair of a technical working committee that did some of the chapters on public finance and so forth. One of the things we did was we got some professors in university to actually look at a study on the viability of devolution in some areas like agriculture and health and so forth. But one interesting thing what I did was that to deal with this matter, because it was coming up even at that time, that the Mount Kenya entitlement thing was coming up, that, so we said, no, let us look at KRA. How much money has been raised in revenue by KRA from Mount Kenya as compared to Western Kenya or Nairobi or Mombasa, and it's really shocking. You know what people don't know is that people seem to confuse that the revenue generation it's not necessarily correlated to the GDP, to the production in a particular county. For example, all the coffee and tea and the things, the macadamias they produce and all the maize and things that they grow does not necessarily mean there is tax collected from that which comes to KRA. In fact, what we found out was that the amount of money KRA was collecting from Mount Kenya was the same as what was being collected in Western Kenya. And if you look at population, the population is the same. So this argument is not true. So the money was coming from where? Most of the KRA money is coming from Nairobi, Mombasa. It's coming from customs duty, it's coming from VAT, it's coming from excise. So me in Mandera, I don't grow my cabbage, I don't grow my maize, I don't grow my beans, I don't grow my everything I buy. And everything I buy, I pay VAT. Where is that VAT paid? It's paid in Nairobi. When my trader picks goods from here, if he collects any good he collects from here, he's paid VAT and tax, so that it gets counted for in Nairobi. This is why when we came up with this KRA thing, we said all the national taxes should be collected at national level, because otherwise it would be misleading if you try to say, you know, the money was collected in this one and not. So you are in Western Kenya, but you're importing goods, you know, through Mombasa, so you pay all the VAT and all the customs duty and in Mombasa. So this idea that more people in Mount Kenya are paying is completely misleading. Second point is that what is this population of Mount Kenya that he's talking about? 17%, 18%, maximum 20%. But in all the resources that have been allocated to Mount Kenya, including the Public Service Commission, which are always published, by the way, they have more than their fair share. The Public Service always publishes that they have 22% of the public service force, which is more than the 17% of the population. But when you look at the revenue allocation, their focus is always on CDF and county governments. Uhuru was crazy about how much money goes to Mandera. He went all the way to Washington, New York, in the UN Assembly and says, we are now giving Mandera is collecting this amount of money. Because it's for the first time we got some money through the county governments. He doesn't look at the 85%, where majority of us don't participate. Busia doesn't participate, I don't participate. It's all going to Mount Kenya. And I published a report, I remember last year when the 1 month thing came up on the difference between Kakamega and Kiambu alone. Forget about my area. You know, in terms of how much money was going in from national government for roads, for education, for all that thing. And you can't and they have the same population. So I think it is this entitlement thing that he thinks, you know, and I think he's clutching at the straws because he's having a problem in Mount Kenya. Uhuru tried this. He said 1 man, 1 shilling for 2-3 years just to try and get Mount Kenya back, and he couldn't. And is what we discussed earlier over tea. We said the issue is not, Mount Kenya people are not interested in the roads and those things. And I wrote articles on that. I remember when Uhuru was in power, I told him, my friend, concentrate on the Nyamakima and the economy. These people want money in their pocket. You have killed their businesses because through taxation, through other measures, counterfeit, and a lot of things. Those guys are out of business. Majority of your people in the backyard are no longer relying on the coffee and tea. It's only the shoshos who are back there on those things. They're all in importing goods and so forth. So you have made things impossible for them to import. Ruto, what he has done, for example, on the loose goods, which are imported, they call it consolidated cargo, which is what you find in Gikomba or any of the similar markets all over the country. That's what people survive on, selling these little things. A container, we were paying 1.7 million tax when this government came in. Now it's 4.4 million. You know, it's almost more than double. So people are finding it very difficult. For the same amount of money that you had, you could import, you're importing now half of what you were able to import before because of the taxes. So these are the things you need to address, the economy, the business. That's what people want in Mount Kenya and other parts of the country. So you can move the entire government to Mount Kenya, which Uhuru did in his last 1 or 2 years to try and get, I remember all my CS friends and CS is always in Mount Kenya. They've been told, finish this project and finish that project. He thought he was going to give him votes. That's not the way. You need to deal with the economy. 1 man, 1 vote. What about the rest of the country? Okay, there are 10 million Mount Kenya guys. What about the other 40 million Kenyans?
1 kilometer. Dan
says
we should add 1 kilometer
it's misleading.
in the mix as well. Let's get our closing remarks as well. Just briefly, you can comment on it and then we get our closing remarks. Exeter Iraqi.
This is an interesting debate. I will not disclose where I come from, but...
You come from Mandera for the purpose of this meeting.
That's what
we need support.
But I think from the discussion we had today, I think it's a time I also try to become an MP, because these two gentlemen have very good experience from governance, from MPs and debate in parliament. I have my academic background, but they have the experience. Maybe I should try in 2027, but that's another question. I think when we talk about this debate of one man, one sharing, there are two things that are hidden by this debate. One of them, and he mentioned it, he articulated very well, is informality. They might have more people in Mount Kenya region, but do they pay taxes? Most of their businesses might be informal, so it is never taxed by the taxman. So that money they are talking about might not be reflected in the tax. And two, it might also be hiding poverty. We might have a lot of people, but they are poor, so they don't contribute to the taxes. So maybe unless we get the real data that shows exactly who pays tax and who works, we probably make a better, we probably have a better debate. But I think what else is being hidden by all this debate, and we need to be very blunt, is politics. I think DP realized that the political winds are turning. So can you find out, can you follow where Fuata Nyuki Asari? And I remember previously he apologized over somebody's mother, abusing somebody's mother. So there's a pattern emerging. But I think the debate he has opened up is a legitimate debate, and we need to discuss at the national level how the resources in this country are distributed. Who generates the revenues and who gets the revenues. I think we need a robust debate on that.
Indeed. Right. Let's hear
I think the issue,
as we wind up,
if you have to run viable states, is within the law that has been agreed, you do all the taxation you can within the law, cognizant of the limitations we have talked about, that you are not killing the goose that lays the golden egg. That's a very important thing. If you have raised revenues and you have, let's say, to simplify the thing, you have put it on Mombasa Malaba dual carriageway and a railway link, and it has led to very vibrant trade links for Kenya. The Lamu is exporting to Ethiopia and so on and so forth. That resident in Kiambu, that resident in Nambale can still be benefiting from this resurgence of activity. It doesn't have to come within your geographic scope, not your household necessarily. And if you take areas like parts of Mount Kenya, around tea and coffee, I want to quote what Kimani Chu was saying, we have taken out our coffee and we put in housing. So we are no longer making the kinds of incomes that used to accrue to individuals. Now it's a real estate thing. The accruals, the income generation are now different, are different people in different ways and so on. It's too simplistic, in fact, I think, to do it the way that the DP is suggesting. I don't remember the specific, I know you did this comparison between Kakamega and Kiambu County. Definitely they're about the same size. But it masks a lot of things to simply say we are the larger number, so we must get the money. Where does the money go is very important indeed. President Uhuru, we keep quoting him, he spent a lot of money on infrastructure. But people are very unhappy, and so on. So it's not how much you spend there that really matters. It's the quality of expenditure and the opportunities that you provide.
Thank you, thank you. Gentlemen, I think we need to wind up here. I really appreciate your sentiment this morning. Very informative. I can see the sun is upon us right now. But we've gotten rich stream of information as far as the state of economy is concerned. I want to thank Kabilo Kero, our political economist and our resident analyst every Thursday. We really do appreciate your input here as well. Bunyasi Sakwa, the chair of Kenya Development Corporation. And also I want to thank you, Professor Exen Iraki as well, for your contribution from the University of Nairobi School of Business. Thank you very much for your valued company. News Diary is up next.